The State Security Service, more commonly known by its original name as the State Security Administration, was the secret police of Yugoslavia, best known at all times simply by the acronym UDBA. In its latter decades it was composed of 6 semi-independent secret police organizations, one for each of the 6 Yugoslav federal republics, coordinated by the Central Federal Office. Although it operated with more restraint than other secret police agencies in the communist dictatorships of Eastern Europe, the UDBA was nonetheless a feared tool of control. It is alleged that the UDBA was responsible for the eliminations of dozens of enemies of the state within Yugoslavia and internationally. Eliminations vary from those of World War II states Croat leaders Ante Pavelic and Vjekoslav Ljuburic, to Croatian emigrant writer Bruno Busic. With the breakup of Yugoslavia, every republic formed its own secret police, but only the Serbian branch kept its former name State Security Service. Functions. UDBA formed a major part of the Yugoslav intelligence services from 1946 to 1991, and was primarily responsible for internal state security. After 1946, the UDBA underwent numerous security and intelligence changes due to topical issues at the time, including fighting gangs, protection of the economy, common form, Inform Bureau, and bureaucratic aspirations. In 1945 and 1946, for instance, the UDBA was organized into districts. In 1950, when the administrative territorial units were abolished as authorities, the UDBA was reorganized again. During this period, the intelligence and security activities concentrated less on intelligence and more on internal security. There was an emphasis on collectivism, brotherhood, social harmony, loyalty, and tolerance towards those with different views. Deviation from this set of values became an immediate issue for security services. Later, the use of force was mitigated, and when the process of decentralization of people's power began, intelligence and security services underwent further reorganization in order to decentralize power and increase effectiveness. The Act on Internal Affairs and the Decree on Organization of State Internal Affairs Secretariat regulated the Intelligence Security Authority as the prerogative of the State Security Directorate within the Ministry of the Interior. The following reorganization addressed issues relating to the competence of the Federation. Structure. Intelligence and security activity was organized in the following manner. After OZNA was abolished, intelligence activity was divided among various federal ministries. The Federal Ministry of the Interior by the State Security Administration, and the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs by the Service of Investigation and Documentation, which collected foreign political information. Military defense intelligence was handled by the GS 2nd Department of Yugoslav People's Army. SDB in the republics was not autonomous, but was tied to the federal service, which coordinated the work and issued instructions. State security was regulated by secret legislation, which prescribed the use of special operations. The SDB performed house searches, covert interceptions inside the premises, telecommunications interception, covert surveillance of people, and covert interception of letters and other consignments. Of primary interest to the SDB was domestic security, identifying and obstructing activities of the domestic enemy. Intelligence work abroad was deemed less important and was under federal control. The SDB was a political police, answerable to the party organization from which it received its guidelines and to which it reported. The SDB was so deeply rooted in the political system that one of its tasks was the preparation of political security assessments, that is, assessments on literally all spheres of life. During its activity, the SDB enjoyed a wide range of power, including classical police powers. The SDB organization was constantly changing and making improvements, but it remained tied to the central unit in republic capitals and smaller working groups in the field. All information and data flowed into the central unit in the capitals and sent on from there to the users. Field groups had working contacts with the local authorities but did not answer to them. Activities. From 1963 to 1974, security intelligence services dealt with a series of domestic and foreign political events. At home, there were political confrontation both before and after the Brioni plenum, liberal flare-ups and massive leftist student demonstrations in Belgrade in 1968, Hrvatsko proljeće or MASPOK in Croatia in 1971, a nationalist incursion of the Bugajno group at Ragusa, and a revival of nationalism in Kosovo, Serbia, Macedonia, and Slovenia. The most significant event abroad was the invasion of the Warsaw Pact troops into Czechoslovakia in 1968. These were the circumstances at the time the first Act on Internal Affairs of the individual republics was adopted in 1967. According to this act, internal affairs were handled directly by the municipal administrative bodies and the secretariats of internal affairs of each republic or by their provincial bodies. This was the first time since 1945 that republics gained control and greater influence over their individual security organs and intelligence security services. The State Security Service was defined by law as a professional service within the Republic's Secretariat of Internal Affairs. Naturally, most of its competence remained within federal institutions, as prescribed by the Act on Handling Internal Affairs under competence of federal administrative bodies, which determined that the Federal Secretariat of Internal Affairs coordinate the work of the SDB in the republics and provinces. Further steps were taken with the transformation of state administration, adoption of the Federal Act on State Administration, and the Republic Act. The newly adopted Act on Internal Affairs tasked the Republic's Secretariat of Internal Affairs with state security issues, which then became RSUP issues and were no longer given special handling at the RSUP. This resolution remained in force until the 1991 modifications of the Act on Internal Affairs. List of people targeted by UDBA post-1986 period. The role of intelligence and security changed after 1986, when a different mentality reigned within the party and the processes of democratization were initiated. Intelligence security agencies came under attack, and many people started publicly writing about and criticizing the SDB. There were no more taboo subjects. The party organization was abolished in the SDB and the first attempts to introduce parliamentary control began. The appointment of a commission to monitor the work was one of the most absurd decisions made by the country's intelligence security services during the era of social democracy. Since SDB activity was regulated by federal legislation and regulations published in the secret official gazettes, neither the commission members nor its president had access to these acts. It was difficult to evaluate information, since the commission had no investigative powers or capability to verify information. The head of the service was tasked simply to deliver requested information, even classified, to the commission. The SDB was also still receiving tasks from the party, although the supervising commission lacked the powers to control those tasks. The above-mentioned events undermined the unity of the SDB, which formulated its own unpublished regulations. This made any protest about violation of rights impossible, as the regulations were inaccessible to the public. The first democratic multi-party elections in 1990, which enhanced the process of democratization, reverberated within the Federal Secretariat of Internal Affairs and Federal State Security Service, which were fighting to maintain control over the individual SDBs in the republics. The latter became increasingly disunited. It was still legally connected to the federal bodies, but was becoming aware of the fact that it operated and worked in the particular republic. Some professional cadres, especially those in the domestic field, began leaving the service. Conflict was increasing, and SDB archives were being systematically destroyed. In its search for new roles, the SDBs also began to limit information they were sending to the SSDB. It ultimately restricted its information to foreign intelligence services. Along with the weakening of the SSDB position, attempts were made by the Yugoslav People's Army Security Service (ICOS) to strengthen its own strongholds in the different republics and in the individual SDBs. The attempts failed because they depended upon cadres of other nationalities still employed in the SDBs but who had no access to databases and had no decision-making power due to their Yugoslav orientation. Recently released files contain information on 1 million citizens of the Socialist Republic of Slovenia and other former Yugoslav republics, whose files the UDBA in Slovenia kept records. In 2003 and 2010, it was possible to see the names of the UDBA agents in Slovenia, some of whom are still active in the Slovenian military and the Ministry of Interior, at the website UDBA.net. The government of Slovenia promptly demanded the removal of pages from the website, so they are currently not accessible.